Hi, this is Al Robinson, a network marketing professional residing in Plainsboro, New Jersey, and today's topic is a positive mindset tip, and it's captioned From Faith to a Successful Grade School Project. And I'm sure you're wondering what in the world does a grade school project have to do with mindset training and faith and network marketing and home-based businesses. And if you give me just a minute, I'll explain all of this to you. Now, it all begins with a elementary school grade schooler, a 3-year-old. His name is Brian Robinson, my son, and he basically brought home a project that his school teacher assigned the class regarding colonial history in the United States. And the project, which many of you parents I'm sure will sympathize with, was our first project from hell. Basically, the teacher had assigned about, I'd say, about 30 or 40 different assignments, and each assignment had a point value, and each student had to do enough assignments to aggregate a total of 75 points. Now, one of the points was the creation of a log cabin, which my son told me he really, really, really wanted to do. The only problem is my son told me about, I believe it was on a Thursday or a Friday, and the assignment had been handed out on a Monday or a Tuesday. So I said, okay, log cabin, not a problem. Let's go to the store, get some Lincoln logs, and we'll put together our log cabin. And my son replied, "No, Dad, someone else already did that." And that's when I asked him when did he get the assignment, and then he told me he had gotten it on Monday or Tuesday. So I said, okay, well, let's see, what else can we do to build a log cabin? How about pretzel sticks? You know, the big pretzel sticks that are about 10 or 12 inches long and maybe a half to 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And he said, Dad, somebody else already did that. They used cake frosting to build a log cabin out of pretzel sticks. So I'm wondering and wondering and wondering, and my son said, Dad, what are we gonna do? And I basically told him, don't worry, Brian, we'll come up with something. And I labored and labored and labored all that next day, which was Friday. And Saturday, I had to take some clothes to the cleaners, and I had to take a couple slacks, so I pulled them off the hanger, and guess what I discovered? On the coat hangers, or the clothes hangers that the dry cleaners used, are these cardboard tubes or cylinders. Let's see if I can get one off the hanger. Okay, and I did this very thing before going to the cleaners. I pulled one off and took a look at it and said, aha, a plan is beginning to come together. And I showed it to my son, and he looked at it, then looked at me, then looked back at this, and looked at me, and said, Dad, how are we gonna make a log cabin out of that? I said, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna cut the tubes down to size, and what I then did was I took my miter saw and saw it about a third of the way through each one, about a half inch away from the end. And then I took a pair of pliers and I crimped or mashed in the end. Okay, I did it on this one, and let's do it on this one. And why did I do that? Well, so when we assembled the walls of the cabin, they would then interlock. Okay, so I could then open up the ends, and it would look like authentic logs. And when I explained this to my son, he basically said, I don't understand, Dad, how this is going to come out, but if you say it'll work, I'm sure it'll work. And that really, really, really touched me, because my son had faith that Dad was going to be able to pull this off. And isn't it amazing how your children have faith in either mommy or daddy with respect to a specific task? And It's even today when I think about that, it sometimes causes me to reflect and get a little melancholy and maybe teary-eyed to think that my little boy had that much faith in his dad to be able to help him pull this off. So in any event, to make a long story short, that's basically how we did the walls. Now the question was, how do we get the walls to remain sturdy so the thing wouldn't fall apart? And I thought about using some type of epoxy glue, but that didn't seem like it would really cut it for me because it would get really messy. And keep in mind, this is a school project, so I need something that my son, who was in third grade at the time, would be able to help me with, without getting his fingers stuck together or to his clothes or whatever. So the idea I came up with was I got a bunch of straight pins, and basically what I did was, as we built the wall, I would stick a straight pin through two or three of these tubes. And what that did was it made the project very sturdy. So we spent the better part of half a day, me mitering and my son with the pliers crimping the ends, and he's still wondering how this is going to all come together. So the next day is when we actually started, and I dealt with the straight pins on the wall, and basically, as the house began to take shape, my son began to see, well, maybe this thing might work after all, and Dad really does know what he's doing. But to cut this tale short, what I'll do is, and I don't have a camera to do this with other than my webcam. So what I'm going to do is give you a view of what the final project actually looks like. And here it is. Okay, as you can see, we took the tubes, put them on top of each other. Then we took a piece of cardboard that I cut down the sides to make an A-frame roof, okay, and I, creased it in the center, and then we glued that to the walls that we built. Now, as you can see, the crimping really came out nice, and it does, look fairly authentic, doesn't it? Now, for the roof, we wanted to keep this as natural as possible and as authentic as possible. So what we did was we went out into our backyard and we looked at the firewood that I have stacked outside. And my son wanted to cut big pieces of bark and then glue them on. And we tried that on a sample, and it didn't work too well and got real messy. And what I noticed was, if I pulled the bark off of the firewood and looked at the innermost layer of the bark, there was a thin layer of soft bark that we could then peel off and cut into different sizes. So that's what we did, and that's what we glued to the roof. Now the chimney is basically a cardboard form that I made to resemble a chimney, wider at the bottom and narrow at the top. And what I then did was I bought some tan colored caulk compound, just like you use, to caulk around your windows. And I did beads of caulk so that they touched each other, running from the bottom to the top. And then I got some chocolate Hershey morsels that you use for chocolate chip cookies, and I had my son stick those into the side. Now keep in mind, my son is about 28 years old right now, and at the time, Brian was what, 8 years old. So this cabin is literally 20 years old, and if you look closely, you can see the some of the dust on it. Okay, and basically this is what came out. And then we took another piece of cardboard and fashioned a door that the kids could open, when he took it to school. And Brian's idea was to paint the inside of the door to look like wood panels. So that's the brown and then the dark lines in there. And basically, this is the project. Now, as we were doing it, both my son and my wife could not understand how all of this was going to come together, because we hadn't yet assembled it. Okay, but as we improved on our plan, and we got the logs in place, and then the roof, and then the chimney, and the caulking compound, and the chocolate morsels, and the door. Then everything became very, very crystal clear. Okay, now why did this work? Well, this worked because Dad developed a vision. Well, first Dad developed an idea to use these tubes as the logs for the building, and from that idea, we already had the desire, which was to build a project. And from that idea, I developed a vision that I tried to explain to my son, but he couldn't quite see it until the project was done. Okay, and tell you the truth, my wife couldn't see it either. And it's interesting. My wife's donation was the pan, which is basically a pizza pan that we glued the project to. And don't you know, when it came time to drive my son to school to take the project in, uh, my wife beat me to the punch and drove him in. And the kids and the teacher were really, really wowed by the project. And what was even more impressive was the fact that, because my son was integrally involved in the process of the construction, he explained to the teacher everything that we did. And he said, my dad had to help because there were some things that I just couldn't do. And the teacher was very, very sympathetic, mainly out of awe at how the project came out. Now, I'm not showing you this to brag about my craftsmanship or anything like this. It's designed to relate how this process relates to our home-based businesses and our network marketing activities. Okay, and it's all predicated on the teachings of Dr. Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich. And in the book, Dr. Hill states that the beginnings of every major achievement that people who have achieved significant wealth and career opportunities evolves from is is first the development of an idea. That idea then in turn becomes a vision that one has, and the vision becomes aligned to your desire. Okay, now where does faith come in? Well, faith, which Dr. Hill basically describes as, and I'm reading directly from Think and Grow Rich, faith is something that is hard to explain. Okay, and it's hard to explain how one develops faith. But what Dr. Hill says is that repetition of affirmation of orders to your subconscious mind is the only known method of voluntary development of the emotion of faith. Now, what are we saying by this? Well, what my son said was, Dad can do this. I know Dad can do this. I have faith that Dad can do this. Although he didn't articulate it, this is what he was feeling. And what is faith? Well, basically, faith is that affirmation that you tell your subconscious mind through autosuggestion or self-speaking or self-thought, that you can do something, or that something is there for you. All you have to do is do what you have is to do what you have to do in relation to your plan to achieve it. Okay, and in this instance, Brian, or my son, his faith basically led him to believe, okay, which is another principle emphasized by Dr. Hill, that the project could get done. Did he know it could get done? No. Faith is something that is somewhat axiomatic. And by that, what I mean is, faith is something that you inbreed within yourself to the point where you accept it as true. You accept it as something that's going to come to pass. You believed in it. And that's what we need to do with our home business opportunities. Now, faith comes into two major categories that we need to focus on. Faith in yourself, that you're able to do what you need to do in order to put into action your definite plan that you come up with, and then faith that whatever endeavor you're pursuing will work. Okay, so it's a two-pronged attack that you have to make. And as you see, if you focus your faith, okay, what happens is you develop a burning desire to accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish. In our case, it was the construction of the log cabin. Okay? For network marketers, it's your development of a successful and ongoing business that will help you achieve whatever dreams you may have, whether it be financial wealth, or if it's a career opportunity, or whatever your goal and objective in life may be. Okay, so concentrate and develop your faith, because what it will do is, through your burning desire, it will help you overcome any pitfalls that will present themselves to you at some point in time down the road. And it will help you push through, move your business forward so that you can achieve the success and realize your vision and your primary major purpose in life. Having said that, I wish you the best in whatever endeavor you're pursuing. I hope today and this week are both profitable and prosperous for you. And God bless. And I'll see you on the next video.